Welcome to another fun-filled Monday edition of Second City Sports. We're live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she. I'm Cindy Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Kingdom McGee on the Twitter and at Kingdom_McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app. You want to know why? Because we said so. That's why. And also, too, you can catch our other 5 live shows throughout the week. But you happen to miss them, you can watch them and listen to them at your own leisure. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app today. Also, for Sports Zone Chicago, you can follow them on all social media platforms. That's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You search for Sports Zone Chicago. Once again, at Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. If you want to catch the audio version of our show, you can catch our podcast at War on Anchor. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type this in your search engine boxes on those podcast platforms. WARR on Anchor. And you can follow War Media at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Once again, at War Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have opinions on any of our topics that we'll be covering for today's show during our 2-hour extravaganza, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll or do something stupid or act a fool, I have given Lakeena full permission to give you the Will Smith stage slap.
Well, maybe not necessarily in that sense, but yeah, bye-bye.
Keep my name out your mouth. Moving on. Lakeena, let's kick off this Monday edition of Second City Sports by discussing college basketball. March Madness is heading down the home stretch. The Final Four will take place next weekend in the city of New Orleans. The Final Four teams are set. Let's review the action from this past weekend's games. First, we'll start off with Villanova. They were the first team to punch their ticket to the Final Four. They defeated Houston in the South Regional Final by the score of 44-50. For Houston, Tajay Moore led the Cougars for 15 points and 10 rebounds. And for Villanova, Jermaine Samuels had 16 points and 10 rebounds. Lakeena, the stats by both these teams were identical. Both of them shot around 30%. The rebounding edge went to Villanova by 1, but it came down to these two things: free throws and three-point shooting. Houston was only 1 of 20 for three-point range, and Villanova from the free throw line was a perfect 15 for 15, while the Cougars went 9 of 14 from the free throw line. It always comes down to the little things and the fundamentals, and that's exactly what happened last Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, that's not going to win you games if you're Houston being 1 for 22 from 3. And unfortunately, that was sort of like the thing. They picked the wrong, time in the wrong game to be ice cold from 3. And I know some people were wondering, like, well, how would it be called, officiating wise? Look, it turned out it was actually a pretty even game by halfway through the second half. It was actually Villanova that was already in foul trouble. So for folks who thought that maybe, oh well, like they'll call the games against Houston. They're gonna call all the fouls and such. That turned out not to be the case. What killed Houston was, like you said, the lack of 3-point shooting. And look, Villanova. It sucks what happened to Justin Moore. He's tore his Achilles, and now he's not gonna be able to play in the Final Four. Villanova doesn't go that deep anyway, so him getting hurt. It was like right at the end of the game too, and that was just unfortunate. And everyone knew that he tore his ACL. And look, this is the 7th time Villanova's going to the Final Four, the 4th under Coach Jay Rice. So I feel like he needs to be getting his due now. And look, you got Connor Gillespie and Jermaine Samuels Jr. Those guys have kind of been leading the charge for Villanova this whole tournament. And now with Moore being out, like I said, the depth they don't go that deep anyway, so that could kill them against Kansas. But we'll get to that later this week. But unfortunately for Villanova, for Houston, I should say, that they couldn't get their 3 points, going. Jermaine, she was over 5 from 3. That's Jamani, she I should say, he was over 5 from 3. Tajay Moore, who was their best 3-point shooter, he was only 1 for 5. Kyler Edwards, another one of their best 3-point shooters, was 0 for 8. So yeah, those are the
Mhm.
type of things that's not gonna get you. That's not gonna win you a lot of games. So I feel like it was a combination of Villanova's defense, Houston
Mhm.
being cold, ice cold from three, and just experience too. I feel like Villanova's experience definitely helped them in this game. I feel like.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Uh, Houston's offense was ice cold. Their defense really kept them in the game. As I said before, the statistics by both these teams even each other out. The free throws made the difference. But we saw what Houston did against Gonzaga, Illinois last week, and their defense, as we talked about, they're a very good defensive team, but just some of their stars outside of Tajay Moore against Villanova just couldn't get it going. And you need your big time players to step up in big time games. And like you said, Villanova did that, and Villanova did that. Houston just couldn't find any rhythm offensively to get it going. So those were the keys to the game, I believe, and also to all the hustle plays as well, diving for loose balls. Getting the key rebounds, getting the key block shots. Villanova did that more than Houston did down the stretch.
Yeah, and that was sort of like the key too as well. And look, I mean, Houston's defense. I mean, like I said, for their defense, I mean, Villanova did struggle early. They only held them to
Mhm,
27 points. But like I said, I mean, the 3-point shooting, I think that's what killed them. Also, the free throw shooting. I mean, they were like I said, they were going to the line just as much as Villanova was. So people were wondering,
mhm,
like, will the calls kind of be uneven, to Houston's disadvantage, I should say. It actually
mhm.
was pretty even. So I think folks, on that respect, that definitely that kind of killed that momentum as well. Also, too, this also breaks a streak, by Houston. Houston had been, I think, like 4-0 in the regional finals. Yeah, they had Villanova had their first loss, and in doing so,
Mhm.
they had won each of their last four regional final appearances. Each of the last two in the final four appearances, of course, they would cut down the nets. So we'll see if that's the case. It could be a tough task, especially with more being out for them. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be very interesting this this matchup with Kansas. Again, we'll talk about that in a second. But this was just a really okay. None of the games were great. None of the four like elite games were great, but this was probably I would say the most competitive. If you want to if you had to choose which one was
Yeah,
really
by
good
default. Yeah.
by default. But again, the South region and such. So it actually ended up being a pretty interesting game. I mean, yeah, the scoring wasn't there of Avi,
Mhm.
but it had its moments. I think like Houston, they got down to like 2 or 3. I think 1 point. I think they were down only by one, but Villanova's experience and of course Houston's cold shooting, I think kind of killed them in the end.
The second team to punch their ticket to the Final Four last Saturday was the Duke Blue Devils. Coach K's last dance season continues. The Duke Blue Devils defeated the Arkansas Razorbacks in the West Regional Final by the score of 78-69. For Arkansas, Williams led the team with 19 points, 10 rebounds. Mark Williams for Duke had a double-double, 12 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 blocks. Lakeena, Duke controlled this game from start to finish. They led by 9 in the rebounding department, 34-25. Offensive rebounds, even though Arkansas had the edge, the defensive rebounds went to Duke by a 27-17 margin. And their 3-point shooting was tremendous, even though they didn't take that many. They shot 40%, 4 or 10 shooting. But the Arkansas Razorbacks, especially early, their shooting went ice cold. They ended up shooting 41% for the game. But Duke, as I mentioned before, they controlled the pace from start to finish, and they shot a whopping 54.7% for the win.
It's also to Coach K's 13th Final Four appearance, which is he passed John Wooden in that front, and he has Final Four appearances in each of the decades he has coached. 3 in the 80s,
Mhm,
5 in the 90s, of course, 2 in the 2000s, 2 in the 2010s, and now the first one and the only one I should say since he retired in the
mhm,
2020s. So just a remarkable feat. And look, early on, I think Arkansas had control. They controlled the pace. Their defense was smothering Duke, and they were hitting their threes and such. But after that timeout, I think Duke they
mhm,
kind of woke up. And I know that some folks, like where were some of these guys? Like Pachero has been around. He's all ACC. Griffin's all ACC too. Also,
mhm.
too, Mark Williams can be a double-double threat. I think he averaged a double-double through most of the season. So, look, they're getting contributions for pretty much everybody on there. And this is something that is really like, remarkable what Duke is doing. And we'll get to, like I said, we'll get into the matchups in a second, but this sort of
Mhm.
like, great spread out scoring by them. And once Duke, after that first timeout that Duke took, after that, they kind of control the pace, and Arkansas, couldn't get their shots going. 6 from 20,
Mhm.
6 for 20, like you said, 6 from 3 pointers. That's not going to
Mhm.
win you a lot of games. And they struggled. Some of their stars struggled. I mean, Williams led the way, but Note had his struggles, from the arc, and also too from the field. So it's sort of like just one of those things where Duke unfortunately was able to, kind of control the pace, after that initial run that
Mhm.
Arkansas had.
Couple of things. Give Arkansas head coach Eric Musselman credit. He had those kids playing for him, playing at high intensity, especially defensively. They're a young, athletic bunch. Hopefully, they can get some recruits down there because I think that they may have something special going on down there in Arkansas. No one expected them to do this well this year, especially in this tournament. So they got as far as they did, but they ran up against a better team at Duke. And we can break this down on our next show on Friday, Lakeena, as when we'll preview the Final Four matchups. Duke used that North Carolina loss at the end of the regular season as a springboard. Yes, they didn't. No, they didn't win the ACC tournament after that, but ever since that loss at Cameron Stadium, Coach K's last game coached there, this team has been focused and been on a mission. And they really got the fundamentals down up to this point. Yeah, some things fell their way. That it happens like that sometimes, but they've been able to take advantage of them.
Yeah, they really did. And look, I think, like I said, Duke was able to control the pace after that initial timeout. I think,
Mhm.
once they settled down, I think it was mostly nerves too. I think, for a lot of those guys, this is their first trip in the Elite Eight. So, you got to think the nerves probably kind of like, they were tightened up early, but once they got relaxed and they got going, it was hard to stop them. And Arkansas had no answer for it.
You're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. We're reviewing the March Madness regional final games from this past weekend. Let's move over to yesterday's action from Sunday in the Midwest regional final here. It took place here in Chicago. Number one, Kansas did not have any trouble with number 10, Miami, as the Kansas Jayhawks will make another trip to the Final Four under head coach Bill Self. They defeated the Hurricanes 76-50. For Miami, Cameron McCuskey led the Hurricanes with 18 points, 4 rebounds. And OG Abaji for the
Baji.
Jayhawks, thank you. He led the Jayhawks with 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. Lakeena, the Miami Hurricanes were 6 for 26 in the second half. That I think that's what told the story as Kansas pulled away in that second half. But in free throw shooting, Kansas was at 50%, but they need to do much better against Villanova. We'll get to that later on this week as we preview that matchup in detail. But on the rebounding department, Kansas, especially in that second half, stepped up. They had a 41-28 advantage for the entire game. As I mentioned, Miami shot a whopping 34%, while Kansas shot at even 50%. But the missed shots and the defensive intensity for Kansas really turned it around in that second half.
They were down 6, Kansas was at halftime. They were down by
Mm-hmm.
6, and, it was what, Kansas had their struggles from the field and such, it looks like Miami it wasn't like Miami was pulling away from Kansas early on, it's just that they were
Mm-hmm.
hitting their shots and Kansas wasn't. Now, flip, it kinda like they just, turned on the switch in the second half. You had, Kansas, was doing, Wilson was, hitting, shots,
Mm-hmm.
Obaji, went back, back-to-back threes, that helped, got him to the lead and such, and it was sort of one of those things where you kind of like they just sort of they didn't have to they were 5 for 14. They only attempted 14 threes, but they really didn't need to because they were able to control the paint, especially in the inside with McCormick and Abaji, and they were kind of sort of like to control the tempo. Once McGusty for Miami, I don't know what happened to him. He was kind of like the guy that kind of helped the offense early on, but second half he wasn't able to hit anything. Charlie Moore had his struggles as well. So you kind of think you kind of wonder that again did the nerves kind of get to Miami in the end half in the second half. I think Kansas is a veteran squad. This isn't their first rodeo. I believe this is like their 14th Final Four appearance, if I'm not mistaken. I gotta double check that, but they actually have now had the most wins by any school, like 2,300 and something, which is
Mm-hmm.
absurd in that whole rich history of that program. But Kansas, they got, and I'm sure. Look, free throws always been their weakness. If you can find a weakness with Kansas, look, Kansas is kind of one of those very quiet number one seeds. They're kind of like been lurking around. It's us in the Midwest
Hmm.
region. Everybody, no one was really paying attention to them early on. They won the Big 12 title again,
Hmm.
the Big 12 tourney
I
again.
had my
Yeah,
questions about them too early on in the season, if you remember.
all right, that's true. But look, they have a lot of depth, so I think that's
Hmm.
what once we get into our previews. But they're look. I think they showed that they're balanced scoring. That's always been the thing with Kansas the whole season. And yes, their free throw shooting. Yes, that's probably like the one like big like stain. I think
Hmm.
that's probably why they're not being talked about much. But look, balanced scoring. Remy Martin had 9 off the bench and made some big plays late as well. 6 big rebounds that helped propel that Kansas run. They outscored Miami 47 to 15 in the second half. So their defense
Hmm.
definitely kind of helped them sort of got to be able to control the game once the second half started, and they just could put a chokehold on it and just didn't look back.
And Kansas is on their way to another Final Four appearance. In the last game on the docket from yesterday, St. Peter's Peacocks, their clock struck midnight. As they could not pull off another upset, unlike what they did on Friday against Purdue. St. Peter's went down to North Carolina by the score of 69-49. And for North Carolina, Armando Bacot had 20 points and 22 rebounds. Lakeena, that we talked about this before we went on air today. Once North Carolina went up by 7 and St. Peter's missed their next few shots, and after that first timeout, you pretty much knew, unfortunately, if you were a St. Peter's fan, that this game was over. Give head coach Hubert Davis credit, as we talked about him on this show all season long. Carolina, I said they were going to be better next year with better talent. They still could be, but anything that happened after the first couple of rounds of this tournament has been gravy. Well, the Tar Heels have taken advantage of that.
Yeah, Hubert Davis. I mean, if you saw how emotional he was in his
Mhm.
interview with Jamie Erdahl after that game, yeah, he said, "Look, he said it's them, it's them," and look, it was them. And look, I know people are wondering, like, okay, where did this North Carolina team come from? Like, we didn't see this team early.
Mhm.
Look, when you have more guys, like Brady Monic was a transfer from Oklahoma, and and his evolving hairstyles, it's sort of interesting how. Andre Carolico is probably somewhere thinking, "Oh, well, he's too so my style." But again, that's an old joke. But that's you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, I mean, look,
Mhm.
like I said, once they got to 7-0 lead, early in the game, and look, those 3-point shots, those layups, that St. Pete's were hitting. I hate to say this, but they play like a 15 seed. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, and I think that's unfortunate that this was a time, and like I said, this should have been the early game, but that's a whole nother story. But Bacall, I love his game. He had 22 rebounds, which is absurd. I think that's the most like most like a double double in that aspect. I think since Akeem did it with the Flips 5
Mhm.
sandwich, you gotta go all the way back to those days in the early 80s. But yeah, I mean, look, 19 points for Brady Malik. Caleb Love had 14.
I like him. I
Yeah,
like him. He
yeah,
didn't have
he's
to do too
really
much
good.
yesterday, but I really like him.
I really like his game.
Mhm.
So, he could definitely shoot the three, and he could pass the ball really well. It's such crisp passing. I love his
Mhm.
game. But yeah, I mean, look, I think look, it takes a while, especially we have a new coaching staff, got new guys coming in. It's sort of like look, it takes a while for guys to mesh, and I think look, it took maybe a couple of months. I know they had some bad losses early in the year. North Carolina
Mhm.
did, but they got good. Look, they got better at the right time. And Duke, they beat Duke that last game of the season with all the motion there and such. And look, they looked really good. Now, again, well, can they beat? Look, people got what they look. Some people won't admit they didn't want this, but look, you're gonna get it. Duke of
Mhm.
North Carolina for the first time ever, which I know it sounds odd than me for the first time, in the history of in the tournament, but yeah, going back to 1991, that's probably was the closest. But unfortunately, Hubert Davis was playing on that team in 91, and they were upset by Roy Williams and the Kansas Jayhawks that
Mhm.
year, the national semifinal in Indy. So that's how close that they got. They were very close since then. But this should be a great matchup. Coach Davis is there for the first time, since Bill Guthridge did it in his first season at North Carolina, like way back like in the like mid 90s. So look, there's gonna be a lot of stories there. Look, you got 4 blue bloods in the bayou. So this should be a lot of fun. And also people say, well, why, I'm sick of, I want to say, look, you weren't going to watch, say, a Final Four featuring St. Peter's. You weren't. They should just admit that.
I was.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
in the minority, but
Yeah. So, you got a combined 61 Final Four appearances between these four programs. You got some, great veteran talent all over the place. I know CBS is probably kicking themselves because remember, folks, in the Final Four and the national championship will be on TBS this year.
Mhm.
So remember that once you get your plans for this weekend. But yeah, look, this should be a really great Final Four again. We'll get more in depth into it on Friday. I know we're up against it, but
Mhm.
this year you got four blue bloods, battling out, and it should be this is probably one of the best Final Fours in memory, I feel like.
Yeah, probably since 2008, we had those 4 number 1 seeds making it down to the Final Four in
Well,
San
that's
Antonio,
happened.
of
Yep.
course. Yeah, remember Derrick Rose, former Chicago
Mhm.
Bull. If he would
Mhm.
have made that free throw, Mario Chalmers' 3-point shot would have never happened. But I digress from that.
But
And
remember too, they were also like they probably could have been that they would have been stripped of that title. Just saying.
yeah,
And there's some other stuff too about Memphis.
yeah, we
We
won't
might
get into
get to
that.
that.
Yeah,
We'll get to that,
yeah.
but Google, folks.
Yeah, Google is your friend, as Lakeena would say. But
Yes.
I think it's going to be a terrific Final Four. You have of 2 great matchups with Kansas and Villanova, 2 veteran top power programs, followed by Duke and North Carolina. As Lakeena said, we'll give you a deep dive into our for our previews coming up on our next show on Friday. But would have been nice if St. Peter's was there. Yes, but Duke and North Carolina, like you said, most people would prefer that matchup over St. Peter's, and that's why the people was dumping on St. Peter's. But Shaheen Holloway, great job, young man, and coaching those young kids to get as far as they can. No one knew who they were before the tournament, and no one expected them to be Kentucky or Purdue last Friday night, but they did it. And they showed America what you could do if you believe and stick together as a team. Now, will Mr. Holloway get some offers this offseason? I'm sure he will.
He's probably going to end up going to his old alma mater at Seton Hall. That's probably where he'll end up going. There's already rumors that a deal's already been placed. It's not official yet, but they're in the final stage of putting together a deal.
And good for
So.
him.
And he showed. Look, I mean, look, I think they went to the tournament all 4 years he was there. I think when they went to the Sweet 16, senior year in 2000, but I think he got hurt during one of the early round matches. I forgot who they upset, but I think he got hurt and he couldn't play that Sweet 16 game. I think they will lose. But yeah, so look, he got a nice look. He's gonna get a nice little paycheck there, and I'm sure he'll be able to recruit some of those same guys and probably even bigger ones in that New York, New Jersey area.
The Chicago Bulls get back on track with the win against the Cavaliers on the road last Saturday night. The Cavaliers organization did something special. For those of you that missed it, we'll tell you about it. And plus, there were some great games that went on around the association over the weekend, including a couple of games worth noting from yesterday. All that and more as you're listening to Second City Sports on the Monday edition. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NBA Thursday, the Bulls dropped their second straight 126-109 the loss at New Orleans. The Bulls are 42-31 with the setback. Zach LaVine led the scoring for Chicago with 39 points. Kobe White had 23. The Pelicans got 30 points from Devontae Graham, 25 from CJ McCollum, and a double-double from Jonas Valanciunas. Up next for the Bulls, they'll try and snap the skid tomorrow night when they visit Cleveland. The Blackhawks put a 2-game winning streak on the line tomorrow when they visit the Vegas Golden Knights. Chicago with a 4-3 win at Los Angeles yesterday. Alex DeBrincat had the shootout winner. Colin Delia made 43 saves through overtime in just his second start of the season. Spring training Thursday, the Angels beat the Cubs 5-4. Today, it'll be the Cubs taking on the Rockies. The Giants beat the White Sox 9-6. Today, the Sox will face the Mariners. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Nobody protects you from mayhem like Allstate. I'm a speed bump. Did you hear what I said? I'm a speed bump. And if you have cut rate car insurance, the cost to reattach your muffler could really be a bump in the road. So switch to Allstate, save money, and be better protected from mayhem, like me.
Based on coverage and limits selected, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. In most states, prices vary based on how you buy. Allstate Bar and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel teaches you conversations that you will actually use. With 14 languages and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll learn what matters most to you. Babbel. Language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the Monday edition. We're live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. If you have a question or comment for us during any of our topics of today's show, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Lakeena, let's continue our basketball power hour by moving over to the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls stand with a record of 43-31 after their 98-94 victory over the Cleveland Cavaliers last Saturday night. The Bulls led it by as many as 18 points. They damn near blew that game, which I wasn't happy about, but somehow they held on for the win. DeMar DeRozan was in foul trouble for most of the game. He barely scored 20 points off of 8 of 17 shooting. Zach LaVine led the team with 25 points off of 8 of 17 shooting. Ayo Dosunmu, who started in place of in the place of Lonzo Ball in 32 minutes of action. He had 11 points, five assists, and 2 rebounds. He was very good defensively, except for that couple of those last plays in the last few seconds. We'll get into that in just a minute. But Alex Caruso still returning from his injury. He had 10 points, 7 assists, and 8 rebounds. Patrick Williams had 4 points and 4 rebounds off the bench in 14 minutes of action. And Tristan Thompson, the former Cleveland Cavalier, in 12 minutes of action, he had 5 points and 4 rebounds. Lakeena, we said that this Bulls team is good. Are they championship good? No. Is this team growing? You believe so, but they still have some things to learn. And during the second half, the Cleveland Cavaliers turn their intensity around, and I can see where people would say that the Bulls played down to their competition. Thought this game was in the bag in that second half. It nearly costed them, but there's some things they need to tighten up in order for them to take that next step. These are some growing pains they had to go through as a group, but you hope they learn them in a hurry, because we are officially 2 weeks away from the playoffs. And you're still doing some fundamental things that can cost you games. I didn't like the way that game ended on Saturday, but the Bulls got lucky with the win.
Yeah, they were up 19. I was turning back and forth from some of the Elite Eight games, and I was I saw the initial, they're up 19. Okay, fine. And then it was down to like 3. I'm like, wait a minute, what happened? And it was sort of like I didn't understand that, but it is what it is. I mean, look, I think at this point, it's not about style points, I guess, as long as you win. And look, the Bulls needed this win desperately. And look, you had Zach, looking more and more like the Zach LaVine we know and love. It looks like DeMar's growing. I guess his growing is okay, because he had like a monster dunk in the fourth quarter of that game. So okay, then, he only had 20, but you can kind of tell that we started to see the old DeRozan. Ayo had 11 points. And Caruso had 10 points. His first game in the starting lineup, and a couple of big steals late to seal the game for the Bulls. So the good news is that, okay, you know what? Again, at this point in the season, it's not about style points anymore. Just get the win. Get the heck out of there. You got another winnable game coming up. And look, just make sure you don't, tonight. I know they've won 3 in a row, but there's still the Knicks. But I feel like this is sort of one of those things where you're kind of like, okay, you know what, just take the win and keep it going. They needed this win, and like I said before, style points doesn't matter, and just do it. Just do it.
On the flip side, for the Cavaliers, Lauri Markkanen, the former Chicago Bull, had 14 points off of 5 of 13 shooting to go along with his 9 rebounds. Evan Mobley, who I think should be Rookie of the Year, he struggled, only ended up with 9 points and 11 rebounds. Darius Garland chipped in with 28. Lamar Stevens had 13 points and 4 rebounds off the bench for Cleveland. And Karis LeVert, who they acquired from the Indiana Pacers early in the season. He has 17 points off of 7-14 shooting. Lakeena, this is still a good young Cleveland Cavaliers team. They're just a step below the Bulls. They're in some growing pains as well. I think they're going to make the playoffs. Just for them, along with the Bulls, you better avoid the number 7 spot.
Well, and that's another thing you got to worry about too, especially with looks like Jared Allen's going to be gone for at least the rest of the regular season. So
Mm-hmm.
I think having Karis LeVert there can only help if you're a Cavs fan. I feel like this is sort of a Cavs team. They've hung on. They got 41 wins. No one really thought they would get that much this early, but look, they looked really good, especially with Rubio being out and now Jared
Mm-hmm.
Allen's out. But look, still got Darius Garland. You got Marketing. Marketing actually has looked good. That's a better system for him. Karis LeVert's first game since they acquired him. He had 17 points, so that they kept them in. And I believe it was his three that kind of helped start that run for Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, yeah, like I said before, I'm not like look the key if you're a Bulls fan, the key is to just stay out of to stay out of that 7 spot. Just don't go to
Mm-hmm.
that 7 spot. Look, there's been a lot of movement in the East. We'll get to that in a second, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel like this is sort of one of those cases where just take the win, just take the win and run. You should be able to win at New York tonight. Look, I know the Knicks have been playing better lately. They've won 3 in a row, but that they should be able to beat the Knicks. They got another one against the Wizards. The Wizards have been, they've been,
Yeah.
on a downturn, so they should be able to win that game as well. Then after that, that's when things get kind of interesting. So then we'll worry about those games coming up in a bit. You only got about 8 games left, so try to win half these games. Stay that 5 spot. If you can get any higher than that, do it. Just stay out of that 7 spot.
You listen to Second City Sports on the Monday, live on the Monday edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakeena here with you as we talk Bulls in the NBA. As you mentioned, Lakeena, the New York Knicks are the next opponents for the Chicago Bulls tonight. You can see that game locally at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on NBC Sports Chicago, nationally via NBA League Pass, i.e. MSG out of New York. Lakeena, what do you expect from tonight's game? I know the Knicks have former Bulls head coach Tom Thibodeau. He may be coaching his last games as a member of the New York Knicks organization. You have Julius Randle, a few hosts on New York Sports Radio want him traded as soon as the summer. Kemba Walker, that reunion bringing him to New York has not worked out. Kemba Walker still has knee issues, but they have some young guys that they are taking a good look at, like Mitchell Robinson and R.J. Barrett and a couple of others. Do you expect the Bulls to rump the Knicks tonight, or do you think it's going to be another struggle like the other night in Cleveland?
Yeah, I mean, look, they played the games pretty close. I mean, look, Bulls and Knicks, their rivalry goes back, so all the way back to the '70s. So it's not like, this isn't the first rodeo. The Bulls and Knicks playing each other. But look, this should be a good one for the Bulls. And like I said before, yes, the Knicks have won 3 in a row, but I feel like this sort of, if you're the Bulls, this is your time to pounce. And look, the Knicks aren't really playing for much right now. So if you can, go for a knockout punch now, do it. And we'll see. You're still, P. Will is still, feeling his way through the lineup and such, getting his conditioning back. You got DeRozan, hopefully they've had a couple of days out the Bulls have, so hopefully they can kind of, mesh, at something, Vucevic, we'll see, good Vuce, this time around. So yeah, I think hopefully they can win this, Knicks game tonight. I know Knicks would love to play spoiler for some of these teams, but I think if you're the Bulls, you've got an opportunity to try to, get back. It's that, try to get to that 4 spot. I know it's going to be hard to do, but at least try and get there. And look, this is sort of like your time to kind of finish strong.
And remember, Nikolai Vucevic had a big game at Madison Square Garden earlier this season as the Bulls were getting off
MSG. Yep.
Yeah, and the Bulls were getting off to that great start, and DeMar DeRozan was having a tremendous start to the season. So I'm looking for another big game for Vucevic tonight. And let's see if Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan both play. I know I was in the camp of one of them is going to sit out one of those games because it's a back-to-back, i.e. Zach LaVine. Let's see if that happens or not. But I don't know if you noticed, Lakeena, and I noticed especially early in the game, Vucevic, as we talked about on this show, before, and I know Sean Sierra from Sean and Maya in the morning every Monday, every Wednesday, and Friday, right here on Sports on Chicago, 9 a.m. to noon Central Standard Time. He's been talking about Nikolai Vucevic should start posting guys up. We know he's a very good outside shooter, but when he has the matchup to his advantage, he should start posting up inside. I saw him starting to do that in the game against Cleveland last Saturday, but he kind of went away from it in the second half. Hopefully, he can start that again tonight.
Yeah, let's hope so too, and get it going, because I feel like the Bulls are going to need him, especially if they want to try at least advance like the first round of the playoffs. They're really going to need him to kind of step up.
Yes, and so we'll see what happens tonight. Once again, the Bulls and the Knicks square off at MSG tonight at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Lakeena, let's go around the NBA and give our thoughts on a couple of key games, a few games that took key games in terms of the playoff race that took place over the weekend. We'll just give you a couple of games from last Friday. The Charlotte Hornets defeated the Utah Jazz at home 107-101. The Atlanta Hawks, they still hanging around the play-in tournament field. They defeated the Golden State Warriors without Steph Curry, who's going to be gone for the rest of the regular season, 121-110. As you mentioned, the Knicks, Lakeena, they're coming off. They're still on the winning streak. They defeated the Heat 111-103. Miami, he still has their issues. We'll get to that in just a moment. The Minnesota Timberwolves defeated the Mavericks by 21, 116-95. And, of course, the Clippers were destroyed at home by the Philadelphia 76ers. Here's a couple of games that I checked out as we go to the schedule from last Saturday. The Spurs beat the Pelicans 107-103. New Orleans, that's still a good young team. And too bad Zion Williamson will not play for them this season. He may not play for them ever again, but that's another conversation for down the road. But San Antonio, even though they're not a great team anymore, Greg Popovich still has that roster playing fundamentally sound basketball.
And they'll see some wins in here and there, but I think we'll get to the Lakers in a second. But it doesn't look like they'll be able to get to that play-in spot. They were hoping that maybe they'd probably sneak in there, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But look, Kellen Johnson had 21 points. He's got a gold medal in his credit, so at his arsenal now too. So that they'll go figure with that one. We talked about the Chicago, Cleveland, the Nets, Miami, they just hammered Miami. The Nets did with Durant, KD leading the way with 23. Nice balance scoring there for the Nets. We'll get to what happened to them yesterday in a second, but it's sort of one of those things where you're kind of like, it was sort of, look, Miami's been having some issues, off the court and such. Then Jimmy Butler struggled again. 7 points. They just did look good. I know our girl Lana Tekar is just beside herself right now. Miami. This is not like the worst time for Miami to have their worst stretch this season, but yeah, it's just sort of like I watched a little bit of this game. This was an ABC game, and I feel like I needed some of those minutes back because it was just terrible.
Yeah,
well, it was on the S network. It was on the S network, I should say. But yeah, I watched a little bit of it on this little laptop here. But yeah, it was just terrible from start to what. The first quarter wasn't that bad. I mean, but the Nets got into this little run in the second quarter, and they started hitting shots all over the place, and Miami just had no answer.
Yeah, from continuing our review of the key games from the weekend schedule in the NBA from last Saturday night, the Memphis Grizzlies continue to play well. They're at the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. They blew out Milwaukee 127-102. Milwaukee had most of their guys in there, but Memphis, Desmond Bane, Jared Jackson, Dylan Brooks, Kyle Anderson, these no names outside of Memphis people don't know about, but they continue to play well. Yes, they need John Moran, who's going to at least miss the rest of the regular season with injury. But without John Moran, this team seems to play even better. But they're going to need John Moran for the playoffs. And Memphis continues to surprise people. They're not a joke. This is not a one-time thing. They're not going away, folks. Yes, they made the playoffs last year via the play-in tournament, but this is a better team than the one from a year ago.
We'll experience, so that's going to be a thing once we go into our playoff previews. We'll experience if they get a bad matchup in that first round, they'll probably get the 2 seed. Now, it depends on who they get. Now, I don't know the standings are they keep changing, but if they played, we'll say the 7 seed. They play Minnesota. Minnesota could push them to 7 games. I mean, maybe the Pelicans can make a series. I don't think you would trust either of the Los Angeles teams should they play one of them in the first round. So to me, it's going to be about matchups. I know Jay Williams. Well, they've already, he said that Memphis is going to go to the finals. that might be a little bit of a reach, but I feel like, especially if I think experience is going to be the thing here in the playoffs. That's going to be the theme. A lot of these guys, yes, they played last year through the play-ins and stuff. They're going to need Morant back. I know they've been playing better without him, but you're going to really need him, especially if you want to go far in the playoffs. So we'll get to look, Memphis has looked good. Yes, they're kind of using a lot of no names, but can they sustain it? Can they go far in the playoffs? That's a whole nother conversation we'll have in the next few weeks.
And whether the final from last Saturday's action, the Denver Nuggets, who had a 20-point lead at one point, they barely hung on to beat the OKC Thunder 113 to 107. So Denver, I watched a little bit of that game. Will Jamal Murray come back this year? Who knows? But Nikola Jokic had another big game, and they needed it every last point of his because OKC was coming, and Denver took the foot off the pedal, but they held up the OKC Thunder to get another win at home.
Yeah, Denver kind of scares me a little bit. I know our buddy Jason Pfeiffer, they loves this Denver team, but like you said, I don't think Murray's going to be able to play this year. I think that I saw that somewhere in one of the somebody covering the Nuggets. But it's look, like I said before, we'll see what they do in the playoffs. I think Denver is one of those teams where look, they're right there in the regular season. In the playoffs, it's just you just don't know which Denver team you're going to get. So we'll see what happens there. Now going into yesterday's matchup, you got Boston just hammering the T-Wolves. Jason Tatum had 34 points. Now they're the number 1 seed right now. And, Lou, because, Phoenix beats Philly by 10. Devin Booker had 35 points for them, for the Suns. They've looked really good. It looks like, CP3 might be back this week. That's the rumors going around in Phoenix.
Yeah, he had a good game yesterday. Well, I'll get to it in a second.
Yes, he did. And look, I think, Phoenix already clinched the number 1 seed, not only in the Western Conference, but also too for the best record in the entire league. Which I don't think they've done that. They're the quickest to do that. I think in 4 seasons they're the third quickest to do that, go from worst to first. And I think this might be the first time. It might not be like even before that '93 team with Barkley and Marley and them, but KJ and them, but. Yeah, I mean, look, they looked really good. I know, Philly. Well, we'll see if Boston can sustain this run that they're having. I think Tatum. I just don't see them sustaining it. I just don't think it's going to happen going into the playoffs. I just don't see it. I know Washington. Look, without Steph, I think the Warriors are just. I don't think Clay played that game either yesterday, so the Washington was able to kind of take advantage of that. Not having a lot of those guys there. I think. Well, I don't think Draymond played. Well, Draymond did play, but he still struggling. You can tell that niece is still bothering him. Oh, elbow, I should say, is still bothering him. Clay had 25, but he had his struggles from three. You can tell that they really need Steph back. And look, the Wizards were able to take advantage of them, missing kind of like one of their key leaders. And their 3-point, they're only 8 for 3 from 3. That's not going to be a lot of games.
Yeah, I'll start with the Boston Celtics first, Lakeena. I did check out that game with Minnesota yesterday for a couple of minutes. Minnesota just didn't have it. Their shooting went ice cold despite Anthony Edwards, their second-year guard of Georgia, scoring 24 points. They just didn't have it. Boston came out with a fury, scoring 34 first quarter points, and it outscored the Timberwolves 38-19 in that second quarter to basically put that game away. But Boston could be a dangerous team come playoff time, but I think Philadelphia or Miami will have something to say about that grabbing that number 1 spot in the Eastern Conference. Now with the Warriors-Wizards game, Klay Thompson did play. He scored 25. He was the only one that showed up for the Warriors. And this is what happens when you miss Steph Curry. They're 7-14 in their last 21 games, referring to the Warriors. And so I think for the Warriors, you definitely do not want to fall out the top 4. I think they'll finish number 3. I know they have a mixed bag in terms of their remaining games left, in terms of the strength of the opponents. So they'll get over 50 wins. So probably end up with 51, 52 wins, and they should be fine. Just get Steph Curry back healthy for the playoffs. Now with Boston, the reason why they're up at number 1 because they won their last 6 games and they're 12-3 in their last 15 games. So as I said, Boston. Will they stay at number 1? I doubt it. Miami and perhaps Philadelphia has something to say about that. And speaking of Philadelphia, I did watch the majority of this game yesterday as the Phoenix Suns pulled away from Philadelphia 114-104. Joel Embiid, who's probably the leader in the clubhouse for MVP, he had 37 points and 15 rebounds. Chris Paul had 19 points and 14 assists. Jay Crowder hit a big three down the stretch to basically put that game away. Devin Booker was a scoring machine once again. And Devin Booker should be number 2 or number 3 as far as MVP voting is concerned. Once again, Lakeena down the stretch for Philadelphia. Joel Embiid tried to carry this team, but James Harden was missing in action again.
Yes, and that was sort of the key. And if you're trying to win a title, especially in the Sixers, you can't have Harden have his struggles. I know he might still be banged up from that groin. I don't know, but he only had 14 points. That's not going to get it done for you, especially if you're trying to get out of the East. That's actually surprisingly becoming very competitive. So you can't really afford to have these type of losses against your, especially against, yes, granted, this was the number 1 team in all of the NBA, but it was sort of back and forth for a while, but the Suns pulled away in the second half. So it was definitely one of those games where you're kind of like, if you're the Sixers, you're kind of like kicking yourself that you had a chance to perhaps maybe at least keep it close, but they pulled away late. The Suns did. This Utah-Dallas, now Utah has had their struggles lately. I think Dallas really needed this win because because of the fact that they had lost a couple in their last like 5 or something. So Luka kind of showed up and showed out as usual. He had 32 points, but he got contributions from other guys. Jalen Brunson had 23. Reggie, here's a name that I don't think folks have heard in a while. Reggie Bullock had 23 points, which is a season high for him. So it's definitely they got contributions from all over the place, and it looks like maybe Dallas could maybe still be right up there for that 5 seed. I believe. I think they're like right near the edge of that play in, so they should be able to hang on there. But I think this win, I think Utah, another team from the West that needs to get their playoff mojo going, because this is where it's going to be where it's at.
As we talked about for the last few weeks on the show, Lakeena, it's going to be a log jam in the middle of that pack in the Western Conference with seeds between 4 and 7. Utah, Dallas, Minnesota has now entered the picture. They technically still on number 7, and Denver as well. That was a big win for Denver on Saturday. Given what happened against with Utah yesterday, and Minnesota losing at Boston yesterday, so Denver is still in the playoffs, but they're the number 6 seed. So all these games for those teams are important as we have 2 weeks to go remaining in the regular season. And speaking of the Western Conference playoff chase, the Los Angeles Lakers, I watched the majority of this game via this computer screen. They had a 20-point lead, but blew it down the stretch as the New Orleans Pelicans, they rebounded for their home loss on Saturday with the San Antonio Spurs. The Pelicans picked up a big win, beating the Los Angeles Lakers for the second time this season by the score of 116-108. LeBron James had 39 rebounds and 5 assists. Brandon Ingram returned from his injury, the former Laker. He had 26 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists for the New Orleans Pelicans. Lakeena, the Lakers once again failed to deliver down the stretch. And you could tell, I was watching that game, they were leading comfortably. They thought they were just going to cruise to a victory. The New Orleans had one of their biggest crowds of the year at King Smoothie Arena. But Brandon Ingram's hot shooting, and then and a couple of other guys, Sarunas Valanciunas, the former Toronto Raptor, he came up big down the stretch as well. New Orleans give their head coach Willie Green credit. They continue to fight, and they picked up an important win yesterday.
They were down, I think, like 19, I think. And I think also, too, LeBron got hurt, so I think that also did not help. He also, I guess, passed the 37,000 point mark, by the way, during those 39 points. But yeah, look, there's no really. I don't want to go into this game too much, because we're up against it. I think I want to talk about that Hornets Nets game from yesterday, and this Kyrie's first game back in New York. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. The Lakers thought they were just going to coast through the victory, and I guess they thought that the Pelicans were just going to give up, not knowing that they should know they've beaten them earlier this season. How they actually have some pretty decent talent over there in New Orleans. So I don't know what happened. I think especially once LeBron got hurt, I think that definitely also changed the game as well. So I don't know. We'll see. There's no update on his status, but yeah, it's sort of one of those things where you're just like, okay, the Lakers have had like 3 or 4 of these already. So it's really, this is probably like the worst of it though, but it's just crazy. Now going into this game real quick, the Nets losing to Charlotte. This is Kyrie's first game since in playing in Brooklyn since New York did away with the mandates. Look, he had 16 points. You can kind of tell he had his struggles though. He had 11 assists, but he struggled.
Yeah.
Katie had 27. Andre Drummond actually had 20 and 17, a double there, but didn't really have a lot of contributions from the other guys. And then Kyrie unfortunately had it. Maybe it was the fact that playing at home for the first time this year and still trying to find the rhythm at home, which is sort of weird. But this is sort of the thing that was going to happen once they did lift the mandates, and unfortunately it showed in that game yesterday.
And also to Lonzo Ball for LaMelo Ball, excuse me, LaMelo Ball for Charlotte. Had 33.7 rebounds and 9 assists. And Martin, that kid had a couple of big baskets down the stretch, including the 3-pointer, which basically put the game away for Charlotte. I did catch it the last few minutes of that game. Brooklyn was leading that game early, big, but you notice a theme from this weekend's games. You lead big early, you tend to coast. And some you barely survived, or you just got caught with your pants down. Brooklyn got caught with their pants down yesterday. Like you said, Lakeena, it was Kyrie Irving's first game at home this year. And Charlotte, give them credit. They fought back and fought back hard.
They did, and look, kudos to them for not giving up. I mean, Charlotte is one of those. The Hornets haven't look. We said that the Hornets had a really good squad, so over there in North Carolina. So it looks like maybe Michael Jordan's finally got a rhythm going. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what happened there with Brooklyn. I think they took their foot off the gas, and Charlotte was able to come back and win that game. And yeah, so it's gonna look like I said. I don't know if they'll be able to get into the play-in, but I think Charlotte definitely has like the pieces there to perhaps maybe contend next year.
Yep, we'll see what happens as they're still trying to fight for their playoff lives. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 straight ahead as you're listening to Second City Sports live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. We'll continue with the NBA talk by giving you the key games to watch for this upcoming week. The NFL is trying to change its overtime rules again. Also, Lakeena will give us her NCAA women's tournament update, and we have some sports media news for you to pass along and a whole lot more. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NBA Thursday, the Bulls dropped their second straight 126-109 the loss at New Orleans. The Bulls are 42-31 with the setback. Zach LaVine led the scoring for Chicago with 39 points. Kobe White had 23. The Pelicans got 30 points from Devontae Graham, 25 from CJ McCollum, and a double-double from Jonas Valanciunas. Up next for the Bulls, they'll try and snap the skid tomorrow night when they visit Cleveland. The Blackhawks put a 2-game winning streak on the line tomorrow when they visit the Vegas Golden Knights. Chicago with a 4-3 win at Los Angeles yesterday. Alex DeBrincat had the shootout winner. Colin Delia made 43 saves through overtime in just his second start of the season. Spring training Thursday, the Angels beat the Cubs 5-4. Today, it'll be the Cubs taking on the Rockies. The Giants beat the White Sox 9-6. Today, the Sox will face the Mariners. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Nobody protects you from mayhem like Allstate. I'm a speed bump. Did you hear what I said? I'm a speed bump. And if you have cut-rate car insurance, the cost to reattach your muffler could really be a bump in the road. So switch to Allstate, save money, and be better protected from mayhem, like me.
Based on coverage and limits selected, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. In most states, prices vary based on how you buy. Allstate Bar and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel teaches you conversations that you will actually use. With 14 languages and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll learn what matters most to you. Babbel. Language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports right here on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live in the 11 color along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
Follow me at Lakeena McGee on the Twitter and at Lakeena McGee on the IG.
We have less than an hour remaining of this sports extravaganza today of a show we call Second City Sports. If you have a question, a comment for us during any of our topics that we talk about for today's show, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Lakeena, let's kick off hour number 2 of this fabulous program by wrapping up our NBA talk by giving you some of the key games to watch for this week as we drive down the home stretch as the playoff picture is starting to shape up a little bit. And some of the games on the schedule are really important. We'll give you some of the key matchups, starting with tonight's action for Monday. The Denver Nuggets will start their road trip tonight at Charlotte. That's at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Denver is 44-31, while Charlotte is 39-36. Charlotte is quietly one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference since the All-Star break, as they continue to keep their playoff hopes alive. And also at 6 o'clock, the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're looking forward to bouncing back hopefully with a win after a loss against Chicago on Saturday at home. They'll host the Orlando Magic tonight at 6. Also at 6 o'clock, Atlanta will travel to Indianapolis to take on the Pacers. At 6:30, the Sacramento Kings will play the Miami Heat in South Beach at 6:30. Of course, the Bulls and Knicks are at the same time at 6:30 locally. Also at 6:30, the Celtics will play the red-hot surging Toronto Raptors. That should be another good one. Big game for both of these teams. At 7 o'clock on NBA TV, no Steph Curry, but the Warriors will travel to Memphis to take on the John Morant-less Memphis Grizzlies. And wrapping up the action tonight will be the Thunder and the Trailblazers. Boo.
Yeah, we'll see about that Boston-Toronto matchup. That should be fun. Both teams are in a hot streak lately. We'll see how that goes. And see if Miami can bounce back against Sacramento. They could, but you never know. Sacramento might, we might actually see, an actual, the good Sacramento team that, that beat the Bulls. But so we'll see there. Now going into tomorrow's matchups, there should be a really good one. I'm a little surprised this one's not on television, but I digress. Milwaukee and Philadelphia. That should be a fun one. Could this be a preview for the Eastern Conference Final? Maybe. We'll see. We'll see there. Of course, the Bulls, they have a back-to-back tomorrow. They face the Wizards, but there's no reason why they should win that game, even they're coming off a back-to-back. Detroit and Brooklyn. We'll see if Brooklyn can bounce back from that loss to Charlotte. The Lakers and Dallas. That's the first game of that TNT doubleheader. I'm sure they wish they were able to flex that, but that's a whole nother story. At 6:30 on TNT, the second game of the doubleheader, wrapping up the Tuesdays till you got Utah and the Clippers. It looks like maybe we might see Paul George. I know he's been cleared, later this week, I should say, he's been cleared to do basketball activities. So we'll see. I think that's something to keep an eye on if you're a Clippers fan. So, but even still, that should be a good one at 9 o'clock on TNT.
Yeah, this is a back-to-back situation for the Utah Jazz. They lost at Dallas last night. And for the Clippers, as we said before, Lakeena, give Tyronn Lue, their head coach, credit. This team's been fighting and scrapping all season long. They're at the 8th spot in the Western Conference playoff chase. And they could face the Lakers in the play-in tournament, and they have a real opportunity to knock out the Lakers. But we'll see what happens down the road. Let's go over to Wednesday's schedule. In the National Basketball Association, starting off with Dallas at Cleveland at 6 o'clock. Big game for both teams there. The Nuggets will continue their East Coast road trip. They'll travel to Indianapolis to face the Pacers at 6 o'clock. At 6:30, the first game of the ESPN Wednesday night doubleheader, we have Miami at Boston. Big game for both teams, as both those teams are trying to chase down that number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Also at 6:30, big game for Charlotte. The Hornets will travel to MSG to take on the New York Knicks. It's also at 6:30, Minnesota at Toronto. Big game for both of those teams as they try to solidify their playoffs positions. At 7 o'clock, the OKC Thunder will host the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks are at 500 as of this broadcast. And at 7:30, Memphis will travel down to San Antonio to take on the Spurs. In the second game of the ESPN doubleheader at 9 o'clock, the Golden State Warriors, without Steph Curry, will host the suddenly red-hot Phoenix Suns. As we told you, even though Chris Paul is back, it will not be that bad for Phoenix. Phoenix is the number 1 team in the Western Conference. And wrapping up the Wednesday schedule, New Orleans at Portland at 9 o'clock.
Going into Thursday, some pretty good games here on Thursday. Of course, we'll start with Philly and Detroit. We'll see where Philly is by that point. The first game of the Thursday night doubleheader on TNT should be a good one here. You got Milwaukee and Brooklyn. I know a lot of Nets fans are hoping that maybe Kyrie will finally, get his rhythm going. That should be a good
That's
one
gonna be a
there.
love fest with
Well,
Kyrie Irving on that broadcast. I can tell you that right now.
then we'll see if we'll see how Milwaukee looks. I know that the other guys are coming back healthy. We'll see. This could be a preview of a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference. We'll get to the Eastern Conference playoffs, but we'll get to that in due time. Cleveland and Atlanta, that should be a fun one to battle of the young guns and those teams. Both teams are trying to jockey for positioning in the playoffs. The Clippers and the Bulls. Now, there are some people that say that there's word coming out that says that maybe Paul George might be back for that game. We'll see. He hasn't played in like 4 months. So we'll see how he looks if he does play. Now, the second half of the TNT doubleheader will be Utah as they host the Lakers. Now, we'll see if LeBron will be able to play. There hasn't been any updates because of that ankle injury of his. So we'll see if he's able to play. But that's a big one there on all fronts in the Western Conference.
Real quick, let's go back to that Clippers Bulls game on Thursday. Even if Paul George comes back, the Bulls have been a pretty good home team this year. You would think now, since the sanctions have been lifted from the United Center, they've been getting great crowds this year, mostly bigger from the Bulls because the Bulls are winning. Let's see if the Bulls fans can really sell out that house and give that team a much more advantage because as we talked about with their schedule, Lakeena, they should be able to win these next 3 games, of course, tonight at the Knicks and tomorrow at Washington, and then before you host the Clippers on Thursday. This stretch should give the Bulls confidence to get back on track.
We'll see. I mean, look, it's there for them to take. So we'll see what happens. I feel like this could be another one of those matchups, where again we'll see if they can, they can get it going. I mean, they've got some games left, to get back and get into the win column. Hopefully, they can kind of improve their seeding.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports. We're live and in living color on the Monday edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena here with you. Lakeena, the NFL does not disappoint at this time of year. They're still making some news as the owners' meetings are taking place this week. It'll conclude on Wednesday. One of many topics that's being discussed is the overtime rules. Lakeena, I'll let you have the floor before I give my 2 cents on it.
Oh, you're going to let me have the 4-4. Look, I think it's the absurdity of the rule. Apparently, the Titans. I think it's the Titans that have this rule where they want. I think there's like 2 other teams that have this rule where they want every team to have at least 1 possession. I think the Titans' proposal, I believe, they want to have a full like another quarter. With the overtime game, play like a whole another quarter, which I think is silly. Play defense, folks. I'm just gonna keep it simple. Just play defense, and you'll be. Just play defense, and then 13 seconds, folks, is all I'm going to say about that. So that's all I got to say about it. I don't want to go in too much in depth with it because there's really nothing much to say about it.
I wish the NFL didn't change its overtime rules a decade ago. I got the reason why they did it, but this all stems from that overtime game between Buffalo and Kansas City from the playoffs. Is one of the best games as NFL games has ever been played. And like you said before, we said it on the show at the time. Buffalo played defense, and this you wouldn't have lost. You would have gone on to the AFC title game and perhaps the Super Bowl. But if you start to change things just because to please everybody, you're going to lose in the long run. I don't know about you, Lakeena. You're more the college football person than I am. But if you're starting to change the overtime rules to mimic college football, some of these games already take too damn long. I love the NFL just like the next person, but I'm not going to sit there and watch the same game for 5 hours and watch an overtime that's too gimmicky. Not me.
Well, if y'all want to Illinois Penn State from last season, you want to use that game. We go into 9 overtimes. You want that? But I'm not a fan of the college overtime either, especially after you got to go for 2 after the second overtime, and then after that, it's sort of 2-point conversions. One matches the other person, and it gets kind of confusing. So I'm like, oh, you want to go that route? Okay, but have at it, folks. It's just there's nothing wrong with that overtime rule. I'm just saying.
All right, sticking with the NFL as we go into our sports media news segment. This comes courtesy of our good friends at Awful Announcing. The NFL are really trying to expand their streaming service package with the NFL Sunday Ticket. Now the headline is the NFL is contemplating an NFL Plus streaming service, which could replace Verizon mobile streaming, but questions still remain. Just pointing out a couple of points here. In international markets, they already have their own streaming service with NFL Game Pass offering live and replay games plus NFL Network and NFL Films content. They also have a US version of the same service that offers replays, live game audio, on-demand NFL Network and NFL Films content, and out-of-market preseason games, but no other live games. It says here, the NFL is developing an NFL Plus streaming service that might incorporate a lot of the Game Pass content plus team-centric content, and perhaps most critically, live streaming to mobile devices, which had already been handled through a deal with Verizon, but that deal with Verizon has expired. As sports media consultant Patrick Crates notes in comments, there's a possibility that this is being floated just to try and bolster the bidding for that mobile package that Verizon has held. Craig said, I don't think the NFL has a lot of bidders for this package, and that seems right. The package Verizon held for some notable limitations. Specifically, it was for Verizon phones only at first, but then there was later open up to other phones and tablets, but not TVs. And no other companies were particularly mentioned in bidding for when Verizon signed the deal back in 2017. Lakeena, we talked about this before. People want and need options in all these professional leagues, including the NFL, which is king here, United States. They're looking for another stream of income, and people want to have other avenues to watch their games. Yours truly, wherever game is on in your area, you like to watch that, but we're also watching other games that are going on at the same time. That's what makes the NFL so great.
Yeah, this is sort of like going way above my head here. I don't have Verizon, so I think it's sort of weird that they
I don't
would,
either.
like the NFL Plus. I mean, what is this supposed to, entail? I mean, is it going to be like extra games? Okay, out of market games. Okay, that's why you have Sunday Ticket and other avenues for. Then you've got some of these other things. It's just like, what's the point here? I feel like this is sort of one of those things where I think, they're following the money. I guess you got a lot of cord cutters and such. So it's just definitely one of those things where you're kind of like, wait, what's the end game here? Are you trying to, kind of like, replace Verizon, what they were using for streaming? Do you want to, is it going to be open to every, customer, I guess, or every customer? How much is it going to cost? Will there be packages to it? Will there be tiers like we've seen with all these other streaming services? So it's definitely one of those things where I think the NFL is trying to like maybe do too much here. It's probably like the one case where maybe they are. But I feel like this is sort of like another one of those things. I guess they're following the money, but yet the money, I think the money is sort of like, is there going to be an audience for this type of thing?
Yeah, you all have people paying for Amazon to watch the Thursday night game starting next season for the NFL, and the Sunday ticket package is still trying is up for grabs. Apple TV, I believe, was trying to get on it as well. So I know the NFL is hot, but it seems like it's too much. But like you said, the NFL is following the money, and we'll see what happens with this situation ongoing. Lakeena, do you watch Hard Knocks on HBO? I actually look forward to it every year.
I do.
This year it will feature the Detroit Lions. Yes, the last place dead ass team out of the NFC North. Shout out to our good friend Dan Miller, the radio voice of the Detroit Lions. Hopefully he'll get some shine on that program as well. But the Lions were only three teams that could have been forced into Hard Knocks, along with the New York Jets and the Carolina Panthers. Lakeena, the Detroit Lions, they have some personalities on that team. Of course, head coach Dan Campbell, we heard what he said last year in that clip about busting kneecaps. But I know many of these teams don't want to do it. But the rule is if you haven't made the playoffs from the previous year and no one wants to volunteer, the league has the right to pick whichever team they want to see being featured on that program. You still haven't seen Green Bay, the New York Giants, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the horrible Chicago Bears featured on there. I would like to see the Bears featured on there at some point, but it's going to be the Detroit Lions this year. I know you still have quarterback Jared Goff, who went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago with the LA Rams, but I usually don't do hot takes, Lakeena, but at least my initial thought was they're going to focus in first on Dan Campbell and then go on down the line from there.
yeah, it's definitely like he'll definitely be one of the stars from that show. And then
Yeah.
look, it's sort of one of those things where you're kind of like, wait, what's like you said? I think they kind of like got it by default because nobody else wanted to do it. So
Hmm.
it's sort of one of those things where okay, I guess I'll look at it. And think like. Look, it'll depend like how far they go. Are they going to go like maybe a training camp and such? With whoever they pick in the draft. They're picking in the top 5. So we'll see if they who they get. Maybe we'll follow him around, whoever that guy is. So this could be good, but again, I'm not really like holding my breath too much. But it's kind of like it's sort of silly to think that, but whatever.
The storylines that the plots that go into that program every year, like, and they'll follow the first round pick. Some people believe they'll draft Hutchinson out of Michigan, the University of
Hmm.
Michigan. They're going to follow him, and that's ended up being their draft pick in the first round. Like we said, they'll follow head coach Dan Campbell. They'll follow the guys that weren't drafted. They'll bring him in for training camp. They're going to follow the guy that had that Kurt Warner storyline. He worked at UPS. He worked at
Hmm.
the grocery store for the last several years. This is his last chance to make the team. They're going to have some silly moments, but let's see if they do things a little bit different this year. Just something just to bring it out of the norm.
Yeah, we'll see. And if anybody could do that, it's Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions, right? I guess so. Well, this is probably the most call they're going to get during this time of year, that time of year when that starts. So we'll see what happens there. Some other big sports media news that just came across the pike about an hour ago, according to Andrew Marchand from the New York Post. Kevin Burkhardt will succeed Joe Buck, I should say, as the Fox's #1 NFL play-by-play guy. Meaning, Burkhardt will call 2 of the next 3 Super Bowls. Remember, 2 with after this year, then the year after that, the year after the second year of the new TV deal once that kicks in next year. Fox will have 2 of the next 3. Now his partner is not an official yet, although it looks like it could be Greg Olsen. But again, that's not the rumors are that's not really a guarantee. But there's no reason why he wouldn't be like the guy. He's young, so you gotta think it. But let him be kind of like let those two, him and Burkhardt, they already have a nice rapport. Let them be, that team that could be like who Buck and Neighbor were for them.
Yeah, and also too, what does this do for their baseball coverage? Joe Davis, of course, a local kid from the Chicago area. He's the TV voice for the Dodgers during the regular season. He's been doing a lot of big games for Fox under Joe Buck over the last few years. I think he's going to take over that #1 spot now that Joe Buck has joined Troy Aikman over at ESPN. If that's the case, I think the baseball coverage will be fine because I've heard a couple of rumors that Joe Buck, if he would have remained at Fox, he was thinking about giving up baseball after this year anyway. So I think that if Joe Davis succeeds Joe Buck at Fox as the #1 baseball voice, I'm fine with that. And of course, Adam Amin, the local guy who does the Bulls on TV, he's the #2 baseball voice at Fox. So the baseball on Fox should be fine with those 2 voices. But getting back to football, as we expected, Kevin Burkhardt being the lead voice for the NFL for that network, the network is still in good hands.
And look, his story isn't great. If you're not familiar with his story. He was a car salesman for like about a decade before he got his shot over at SNY, which is the Mets Mets TV station, I should say.
Yep.
Started doing a production. Then he started doing the pre and post, and he started doing play by play and such. So his storyline is remarkable, and I think he is like the epitome of perseverance pays off, and he persevered through the lean years and such. He had to support his family. Look, the things weren't happening at the time, and he was selling cars. So, but then things started happening for him, and look, there you go. And now he's a new lead. He does pre and post for the MLB coverage for Fox. Now he's a new top NFL guy for Fox too. So, congrats to him.
Yes, congrats to Mr. Burkhardt. Him and Greg Olsen will continue to do a great job for that network. You listen to Second City Sports, the Monday edition. We're live and in living color right here in Sports Zone Chicago. Sid and Lakeena here with you as we talk sports media news. Let's bring it locally here to Chicago, Lakeena. According to Robert Feeder from the Daily Herald, David Kaplan, who hosts Cap and J Hood weekday mornings from 7 to 10 a.m. on ESPN Radio in Chicago. David Kaplan, a permanent voice in sports in Chicago, will host a new show from NBC Sports Chicago starting on Monday, April 4th is Unfiltered with David Kaplan. It will air weeknights at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. After a 20-month hiatus at the network, it will mark a return to nightly TV for Kaplan, who hosts the Sports Talk Live, which ended a couple of years ago due to the budget cuts in the pandemic. And David Kaplan hosted the Sports Talk Live for the last 16 years up to a couple of years ago. Quoting David Kaplan, I'm so excited to be back doing a daily TV show and having such a great opportunity to highlight all the stories that make Chicago the best sports city in America. The new 30-minute show will feature trending sports topics, pop culture, and candid conversation with players, coaches, and insiders, according to the network. It'll also feature a betting segment brought to you by PointsBet.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get to another thing that happened here with a good friend of ours we've had on the show. Look, to me, I always felt that they never should have, gotten rid of the old Sports Talk Live. I think that was probably like one of their highest rated shows on NBC Sports Chicago. So it's sort of like a similar thing, only with I guess it's sort of like it's going to be at later at night. So we'll see how the show is and such. And it looks like they're starting to kind of get back into like having regular programming on NBC Sports Chicago. So that was probably one of the reasons because of the pandemic. They got rid of some folks, they got rid of some shows. Okay, now that things are slowly starting to get back to normal, now you've got Cappy, starting his own show. And look, Cappy's been a staple here in this business for like over almost 30 years now. It feels like so. Good for him that he's getting more opportunities. This will probably be like a more of a forum, sort of similar to what he and Hoodie do over at ESPN Chicago in the morning. Now they're gonna is he gonna have time to sleep? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
But, that's the whole nother story. But yeah, so congrats to him. Look, he's a good guy in the business. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing for NBC Sports Chicago. It's airing weeknights at 6. It will be before the Bulls and Blackhawks games, especially with the Bulls and Blackhawks winding down the regular season. And for most days, it will air before White Sox post-game lines for those White Sox games airing at 7 o'clock. And so that's a perfect segue into White Sox coverage. And even after the afternoon games, the games that the White Sox play during the afternoon, that's a perfect post game show at the White Sox post game live. The only thing for me is will you invite on I don't think it's going to be what Sports Talk Live was, but are they going to bring on a guest or two like G and Sports Tonight does from various members of the media around town and across the country?
Yeah, that's going to be sort of like the number one question. Will it be just local guys? Will it be guys? Yeah, will it be local guys? Will it be like folks that we've had on our show? Will it be like our buddy Mark Rory from The Score, or a couple other local guys? Maybe Mark Shanowski, who we've had on. So that's gonna be the thing, right? I mean, that's gonna be one of those days where will it be like pop culture people and such? So I think that's sort of like the thing where I feel like this is kind of be like sort of like. Okay, what's sort of like what's kind of like what's going to be the theme here? Will it be similar to like Sports Zone Chicago, Sports Town Chicago, I should say? That's going to be like for me, that's going to be like the number one thing I feel like.
And you say he had some news on our good friend of the show. I think I know who you were talking about, but let the people know who you're speaking of because there's a news happening on that front as well.
This came out like last weekend. I think this like literally like right after we finished the airing Sid, but our good buddy, our girl Layla Rahimi, who was at NBC Sports Chicago, of course she was let go during all the pandemic and everything else, but now she's back. She's now she's going to be doing she's been doing the sports anchoring over at NBC Chicago on the sports department. Now she's
WNBQ TV for those of you outside Chicago.
NBC Chicago, yes. So there you go. I'm being scientific here, Sid. But yeah, it's sort of now. Okay, she'll be doing the sports anchoring at 4, 5, and 6 and 10 Monday through Thursday. So she's going to be the lead anchor there. Also, our Jeff Blands, we got to get him on at some point. He's terrific. So we got to get him on.
I remember him. Friday. He was on ABC 7 about 20 years ago.
Yeah, but he's.
I'm not telling my age, but.
Well, we're in that same bracket. So remember that. Jeff Blands, who will be doing the sports anchoring on Fridays during that time, and Mike Berman, who's been doing who's been doing a great job, who actually is also from here. We got to get him on here at some point. So he's terrific too.
Mhm.
He's going to be doing the weekend anchoring and also too the reporting as well. He's going to be doing reporting too. So yeah, so we got a new team set over at NBC, Chicago.
And also, too, Layla will still do her radio show every Wednesday with Dan Bernstein from 9 a.m. to noon on 670 The Score in Chicago. So you won't hear her on the regular basis on The Score anymore. But what a great comeback story for her. We got to get her back on at some point. I know she's a busy lady, but I'm sure she'll give us the time at some point. But congratulations to her once again. And the NBC5 sports team is better off for it. The question is for The Score in Chicago. Will they pair up Dan Bernstein with another partner again, or will they just have him flying solo?
Yeah, that's going to be the thing. I mean, they tried that before and it didn't really work. And they've actually been doing pretty well ratings wise with Layla on there. So now that
Yes.
we're going to be doing it on Wednesdays, what are they going to have somebody there to do it maybe Mondays? Are they going to do like a rotating thing like they're doing with the overnights with our buddy Mark Grody and among others? Are they going to do it that way? So look, there's going to be a lot of maneuvering here, and the consistency of it, I think that's going to be the thing. Now they can get away with it now since baseball season's coming up. They're going to be airing a lot of Cubs games anyway, so it really won't make that much of a difference. But with everything else, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Lakeena, we got to take a 2-2 break. When we return, we'll wrap up today's show. We'll sort of have some more fun nuggets and information to give you guys as you're listening to Second City Sports. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. We're live and in living color. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NBA Thursday, the Bulls dropped their second straight 126-109 the loss at New Orleans. The Bulls are 42-31 with the setback. Zach LaVine led the scoring for Chicago with 39 points. Kobe White had 23. The Pelicans got 30 points from Devontae Graham, 25 from CJ McCollum, and a double-double from Jonas Valanciunas. Up next for the Bulls, they'll try and snap the skid tomorrow night when they visit Cleveland. The Blackhawks put a 2-game winning streak on the line tomorrow when they visit the Vegas Golden Knights. Chicago with a 4-3 win at Los Angeles yesterday. Alex DeBrincat had the shootout winner. Colin Delia made 43 saves through overtime in just his second start of the season. Spring training Thursday, the Angels beat the Cubs 5-4. Today, it'll be the Cubs taking on the Rockies. The Giants beat the White Sox 9-6. Today, the Sox will face the Mariners. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Nobody protects you from mayhem like Allstate. I'm a speed bump. Did you hear what I said? I'm a speed bump. And if you have cut rate car insurance, the cost to reattach your muffler could really be a bump in the road. So switch to Allstate, save money, and be better protected from mayhem, like me.
Based on coverage and limits selected, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. In most states, prices vary based on how you buy. Allstate Bar and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel teaches you conversations that you will actually use. With 14 languages and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll learn what matters most to you. Babbel. Language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Welcome back to Second City Sports. We're live and in living color for Monday edition right here in Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakeena here with you, wrapping up today's show. This is our last segment of the day. And Lakeena, let's continue with our basketball talk, but going into the women's game of college basketball, March Madness, as their Final Four field is starting to take place. 2 games from yesterday. I know you've been keeping up with it a little bit, but from yesterday's action, South Carolina, Dawn Staley and her crew, they get it done in the Greensboro region. They defeated number 10 Creighton 80-50, and in the Spokane region, number 1 Stanford squeezed by Texas 59-50.
We'll start with the South Carolina win over Creighton. Look, Creighton, a good job. This is the first they've ever been in that program, so they should definitely be commended. They just didn't have it. I think the experience of South Carolina, I think definitely eventually, got the better of them. And look, I think, like I said before, Jim Flannery has done a great job with that program, basically building it from the ground up. So kudos to him. But if you guys haven't heard of this name, her name is Aaliyah Boston. She had 19 points and 7 rebounds. I'm sure for those of you who follow women's basketball, she has like this cool hairdo. She always plays around with different colors. I think she had like a fusion going on yesterday. So it's, pretty funny. But look, when you're one of the best players, if not the best player in the country, you can get away with, the different colors and such. And she's producing. So they actually had a stat where like which hair color she does best at, which is sort of, it's sort of hilarious. But we'll see which she does when they go to Minneapolis for the Final Four. But South Carolina, they had a couple of losses early in this year, but you got that they're the number 1 overall seed, so they're the top team in the country. They're definitely going to be the favorite now. As far as the Spokane region, Stanford is the defending champions. People forget, but they kept it close a little bit. Texas did. This is the first Texas has been in a while, but they just couldn't get the offense going. A lot of defensive effort there. And the whole Twins, and for those of you, again, if you're not familiar with women's hoops, you got these are the Twins. Lexi Hall, I believe she was. I want to make sure I get this right. I think she was the one who was Pac-12 Player of the Year. I think but her sister Lacey, she had a couple of big rebounds. She didn't score, but she's sort of like that guy, the guard, on the inside. So she sort of facilitates the offense. But Lexi Hall had 20 points leading the way for Tara Vanderveer's Cardinal squad, and this should be. But they're on their way also too. They're going back to Minneapolis, and that should half that field is set. Now you got the second the second part of the Elite Eight tonight. You got number 1 seed. Excuse me, I can't talk for some reason. In the Bridgeport region, this is in Connecticut, folks. Number 2 seed UConn to go up against NC State. Number 1 seed there. That should be an interesting one. I know Paige Beckers is back there. She's starting to find her rhythm again. But NC State, they've looked really good, this whole season. So that should be a fun one. And I think they know that they're kind of in a hostile environment because they're playing like not too far from UConn's campus. So I'm sure they know that they'll probably be, the underdogs there in that front. But that should be a really good one there. But that should be a fun one there, the top 2 seeds in that region. Now, this should be another fun one here in the Wichita region, the Midwest region, quote unquote. You got Michigan trying to go to the Final Four for the first time on the women's side. Then you got Louisville trying to go back to the Final Four for the second time in 3 years. That should be a fun one. Aaliyah Hilton, if you haven't heard of her from Michigan, she's probably like one of the best players in the Big Ten. So if you haven't heard of her, I know she's going to want to. I know she's been very vocal that she wants to get a chance to play in the Final Four. We'll see. It's going to be a tough goal against a very good Louisville team, but Michigan's a 3 seed, so that should be a really fun one. So should be some good ones tonight. If you follow women too, so make sure you check it out.
I want to ask you a question about the UConn Lady Huskies. Of course, they check in with a 28-5 record this season. I know they had their struggles early in the season. I want to ask you about head coach Gino Amarella. I know there's been some criticism next to him the last couple years. I know this has been the most regular season losses they had in a while because they usually have 1 loss or maybe 2 losses at
most, yes.
At most over the last decade or so. I want to ask you, have you think he's lost his touch a little bit, or do you think that the other teams around women's college basketball has suddenly gotten better? Because they used to run it until the last couple years.
I think, for Coach Orihama, I feel like it's a little bit of both. I think it's definitely a case where, yes, he might have lost his stuff. I mean, he's like, I think he's like almost 70 now. I think he's like in his late 60s. So he's getting up there in age. But also, too, I mean, look, you saw what happened in the early part of the tournament. We had like about 6 or 7 double-digit seeds, going to the Sweet 16. So you got like a lot of these players are going like all over the country. They're not just going to UConn or South Carolina or Stanford. They're going all over the country. So, and I think that's what's helped, especially with the NILs and stuff like that. So, the women's basketball, actually all women's sports have actually benefited from that NIL rule. A lot of these ladies can stay home. Now again, tonight, I mean, like I said before, NC State's number 1 seed in that region. I know this could be like a home court, advantage for them. But yeah, I mean, I know like some, UConn people I've seen, like, some people say, oh, maybe he should retire or something or whatever. I think it's a little bit much, but he's still doing pretty well, and I feel like, yeah, like I said, I think it's both. I feel like, yes, he might have lost a little bit of a step, maybe, maybe he's not getting those top recruits like he used to, but at the same time though, like I said, but because of that, it's a lot more open now in women's hoops. You got like it's no longer he's 68 actually, so he just turned 68 like last week, so that's great. Like I said before, he's getting up there. But yeah, it's definitely look. I remember when we first came on this scene when they went to the Final Four in 1990. That was our first trip to the Final Four for the UConn women, and you could tell some people saw that they could tell that something special was about to happen there. I heard somebody, I don't know if it was Ann Meyer, somebody said, I don't know, like Nancy Lieber, but somebody said that he might be building something special, and he has. So look, I feel like, I feel like you could spread out all questions. The one team that I do hope that they lost in the Sweet 16, but I hope they do come back to promise. That's Tennessee. Kelly Harper won a couple of championships back in the late 90s. She's back home. She's getting some big recruits. I hope that they can get back there, because I feel like Tennessee, Texas was able to get there, to the Elite Eight. They after some time, they were like one of the first teams on the women's side to really go into prominence. But I hope Tennessee does, because I feel like women's basketball is better when Tennessee is right there. So we'll see. But yeah, I just think that he's I think Mr. OUM is doing just fine, folks. I think he's getting he's still getting the recruits. He's still guys are ladies are wanting to play for him. So I think for folks kind of just chill on that.
Can we call him the John Wooten or the Larry Brown of women's college basketball as far as head coaches are concerned?
He's up there. I think, God rest her soul. Pat Summitt is definitely up there.
Yeah.
Jody Conrad is another women's, legendary women's coach who's up there. I forgot the La Tech coach from like back in the day. Her name's like right at the top of my head here. But I think women's basketball has come a long way, especially on the college aspect of things. They were playing like in little small gyms. Now it's a big thing. They got the March Madness moniker now. They can use that now. So, yeah. And I mean, look, I think it's it's gotten better. Does it have a ways to go? Yeah, but look, like the men's tournament, they've seen a lot of a double-digit increase too in viewership. So if you, as the old saying goes, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah, so catch both those games tonight, starting at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on ESPN. You're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday edition, live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena here with you. We still have some time left. Lakeena, let's go to baseball. I'll be honest with you, I watched a little bit of the spring training overall, but I did get a chance to check out Sunday's action between the White Sox and the LA Dodgers. The Sox came out of there with a 9-0 win. Of course, they lost on Saturday to the LA Angels 9-3. Andrew Vaughn, the Sox first baseman / outfielder, who did a very good job in filling in for Eloy Jimenez at this point last season. He has a right hip injury. He's going to keep him out a couple of weeks. But hopefully, if you're the White Sox, the injury bug doesn't bite you again like you did a year ago. But unlike a year ago, you had unsung heroes coming and stepping in doing the job. But the White Sox can't afford to have any major injuries this year, especially if they expect to win the whole thing and go farther in the playoffs.
Yeah, hip flexor is what I think. A hip pointer is what they're classifying it as. So, yeah, I think if you're the White Sox, I think you're breathing a sigh of relief, because you're definitely going to need it, especially in those days where you don't want to have Eloy playing the outfield, which is a lot. Please. But
you want to see him in that net again? So we can laugh.
No, I don't. But yeah, I mean, look, it's cool. I mean, look, he was able to avoid serious injury, so that's a good thing. So. That's good to hear. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm not gonna freak out over like if someone's struggling or someone hits like 5 home runs or something, in spring training. You really can't do that. So I say, you know what? I mean, look, you have the depth there. We'll see we just don't know where Michael Conforto is gonna play. So we'll see what happens, in that front. But yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see what the White Sox do, because I feel like I'm sure there are a lot of White Sox fans who are restless right now, especially since he didn't, they didn't get, look, they got Joe Kelly, but he's not going to be able to play for a little bit, and some other, they're able to get some other key guys as well. So again, if you're a White Sox fan, I would say just, chill. If they struggle early, then you can panic, but I think right now, people should just chill.
And speaking of chilling, Lakeena, I think we talked about this before a couple years ago with that shortened season due to the pandemic in 2020. We know this year's spring training was truncated to 3 weeks. Uh,
Hmm.
every team in baseball is going to use the whole month of April, including maybe the first couple of weeks in May, to get their guys settled in. As far as getting them into the routine, we know the games will be more important starting in a couple of weeks. April 7th, with that'll be the official opening day. But
Hmm.
I want to get your thoughts on. How will the teams, not just our local teams, the Cubs and the Sox, but how will all these teams handle the starting pitcher? Because we already know that unless you have a no hitter, even in some cases a no hitter, due to the analytics and the pitch count, many of these managers are not letting these starting pitchers go past 5-6 innings. I think that's going to be a case again, at least to start off the season, since we have such a short spring training schedule.
Well, also too, isn't the roster's going to be expanded for this month, and I think for
Yeah.
some part of May as well. So yeah, so I think this will definitely help. I think you're not going to see a lot of guys going 6 or 7 innings. You may see like maybe 5 at most because of the fact
Hmm.
that the truncated spring training and such. Yeah, so it's going to take. And we've been saying this for the last few weeks, especially since all this started happening once everything was ratified and official. Look, it's going to take teams a month to kind of get into a rhythm. It's going to take hitters a little bit to get into a rhythm. It's going to take some pitchers about a month to get into a rhythm. So it'll be interesting to see how some team, if some teams, if the White Sox or the Cubs or any other, like some of the top teams, the Giants have a bad start, coming off the gate, if the Dodgers have a bad start coming off the gate,
Hmm.
or any of these contending teams, like sans the Cubs. But if the Yankees have a really tough start, going into this early season. I mean, I think people need to kind of like give them a little bit of slack because, like you said, I mean, they're in a rhythm, especially once spring training comes, you're in a rhythm. But the
Hmm.
fact that they've had like a truncated spring training, yeah, you're not going to get into much of a rhythm right away. So I think people need to kind of just chill and give all these teams and all these players kind of like a month or two to kind of like get into a rhythm because look, you're it's all about habits in baseball, right? So if
Hmm.
if they didn't have like a full spring training, it's going to take a while for guys to kind of sort of get to the rhythm of their pitching, and their and the batting and such. So it's look, I think people just need to kind of like just give folks give guys a break if they struggle early on, especially.
And bringing up to my next point, I think that the offensive numbers will go up slightly. How much we'll see, as we talked about, starting pitchers getting the early hook to start the season, especially with the first month, and then with our Chicago teams, the Cubs and the White Sox, especially with the weather being cold. I know spring has sprung here during the late stages of March here in Chicago, but April gets tricky as well with a lot of rain, and we still have temperatures in the upper 40s and 50s. We know that, especially with the Sox, their offense takes some time to get going, but when the weather heats up, their offense usually takes out, and that's
Hmm.
what happens with most of these cold weather teams that do not play in domes. And so, well, especially now with the new rule, you have a designated hitter in the
Hmm.
National League. Offense is going to pick up just a little bit more. How much? We shall see. I don't know if it's going to be up there in the late 90s, early 2000s steroid era in terms of the numbers, but offense should increase
Yeah,
when we start the season in a couple weeks.
yeah, I think it should, and I feel like it probably will expand. And I think, look, if you're baseball, I think that's what you want because you have like some people that are kind of
Hmm.
giving them the side eye because of all this labor strife. It took them all this time. They didn't really didn't want to get a deal done until it was getting closer and closer to folks losing money. So yeah, I think if it is, I would be surprised if the Phillies score, especially they score like 12 or 13 runs at Kane to start the season, and some other teams as well. So I think this could be the thing where it gets folks to tune in to watch. So I think it might end up working out for baseball. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see what happens as we're drawing closer to to opening day, April 7th, which is on a Thursday. Of course, the Cubs will open their season at home against Milwaukee. Friday, April 8th, the Sox will travel to Detroit to take on the Tigers. Tim Anderson won't be playing in those first 3 games due to a suspension pending for what he did against Detroit last season. You're listening to Second City Sports Zone Chicago on the Monday edition. Sid, Lakeena here with you. Lakeena, quickly, and I do mean quickly, let's get to their hockey. The Chicago
Mm.
Blackhawks are 24-32 and 10 on the season. They host the Buffalo Sabres tonight at the UC at 7:30. You can watch that game if you choose to on NBC Sports Chicago Plus. Of course, the last game the Hawks played, which was last Saturday afternoon against the Vegas Golden Knights, they lost in overtime after blowing 3-0 lead, but they won their previous 2 games during that road trip at Anaheim and against the LA Kings. Lakeena, we've been saying this all season long. The Hawks are in a rebuild mode. New GM Kyle Davidson has a lot of work to do. You're seeing signs of a young team, and what happened on Saturday was inexcusable, but you know why.
Yeah, I was, yeah, that game just really like irked me for some reason. Like you had a really nice, healthy lead, but they weren't able to pull it out, and it's just like it's sort of a microcosm of what the last few years have been like for the Hawks. I feel like that's a whole another thing. But yeah, of course, you're starting to look. Fleury's gone. You're going with goalie by committee, if you will, if you're the Blackhawks. So they got the Sabres tonight. So we'll see if they can bounce back. Like you said, Sid, hosting them at the UC. Now it's going to be like kind of a long, who's going to have like the best record in the league. You got, Florida at 94 points. You got Carolina at 93. Then you have Pittsburgh.
They've been
right?
doing good despite
No, they
the
haven't.
Joel Quenneville mess. I'm talking about Florida. I know they picked up Claude Giroux at the trade deadline. That should give them help on the offensive end. They could be another scary team come playoff time in the Eastern Conference. I still have the Rangers as my personal favorite, but don't look past Florida. I know Florida's been coming up short the last couple years, but they still have a very good team.
Colorado have the best record right now, and with 98 points.
Show me in the playoffs.
Yeah, Well, I think that's been the same with Colorado the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't played very well in the playoffs. That's been the problem. So we'll see what happens. Calgary, they're trying to, I guess, like fight for the pride of Canada, if you will, since Canada hasn't won a Stanley Cup in years. So we'll get to that as we get closer and closer. But yeah, very interesting. If you haven't followed hockey, we understand why. But they're getting closer and closer down to the wire in their season as well. I think there's about like 5 or 6 games left for some of these teams. If you're a Blackhawks fan, like it can't end quick enough. But
yeah,
other stuff too. We won't get into that, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they finish in these. The top teams finish.
Yeah, I want to ask you your take about Jonathan Taves. I don't know if you caught his comments early last week about this comes following the trade of Marc-Andre Fleury, as we mentioned. Now, I believe Taves, Kane, and DeBrincat are free agents after next season. I believe.
Yes,
I believe it's after next season, and I know it has not been a good year for Mr. Taves, both on and off the ice. Of course, we remember his comments following the whole Kyle Beach situation. And of course, now he doubts that he may finish his remain with the Chicago Blackhawks. Patrick Kane's been talking about he wants to stay here for his whole career. Of course, he has a young son now, and now to bring in, he's the best young player on the team. Me and Kenneth Davis from That Davis Show, which you should support on War Anchor and watch it right here on YouTube. Me and him been having conversations over the last few years that, especially after they won their last cup of 2015, he told me that Jonathan Taves, that was the perfect time to strike trading Jonathan Taves. Of course, we know Taves been having injury issues throughout his career, and I told him I agree with him, but Stan Bowman, who was the GM at the time, felt like he was. They still had the roster to go for Stanley Cups. Of course, we all know that team got old, and people, other teams caught up to him, and so the trade value for Taves is not as great as it once was. He's in his early 30s now. As Kane has gotten better with age, Jonathan Taves has decreased with his age. Of course, we all know why he missed last season, but I think Taves will finish in a different uniform. I think it's great. What he did here in Chicago on the ice and off the ice will never be forgotten. But it looks like his time is, as of right now, has come up wearing a Blackhawks uniform.
Yeah, that's unfortunate too that you didn't really strike while the iron's hot with Taves. But I think some of the goodwill that he was able to, come up, especially with everything that went on with the Kyle B situation and such. He didn't really do himself any favors with those comments. So I kind of feel like, okay, at least try to get some, if you're, Kyle Davidson, I think if you try to get something for him, you make it like, could you get maybe a first rounder for him? Could you get maybe maybe get another like player for him, a young player that you can probably build around? That's sort of another thing. So we'll see. Now, as far as Kane, I know he doesn't want to leave, but I'm sure he's going to want to go to a contender. I know that, he met his wife here. He's got a young son now, but
Mm-hmm.
it feels as I kind of feel like you're at that point now where you may have to see, for business purposes, it's about
Mm-hmm.
business at this point. And, Kyle Davis already said that this is going to be a rebuild. Now,
Yeah.
how far a rebuild? Will it be a complete teardown? Will they maybe get rid of, Taves and Koenig, maybe like plus some guys here and there, have a couple of lean years until you start competing again?
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing. So we'll see. But there are a lot of, there are a lot of things here. There are a lot of options for Mr. Beach to go on. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the Chicago's West Side Hockey Club. You're listening to Second City Sports on the Money Edition, live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Lakeena, we have a couple of minutes left. Any other leftover thoughts on the world of sports and entertainment that you need just to get off your chest?
Yeah, I'm not going to go into the whole thing with the Oscars. I'll just, here's the thing. I will just congratulate the winners. Congrats to Coda. If you haven't seen Coda yet, it's a great movie. With children of deaf, deaf and assisted living. That's what it is. Marley Matlin was part of the movie. Of course, she was the first deaf actress to win an Oscar for Children of Lesser God. Joe Cosa became the first male actor to win supporting actor. For that movie this year. Ariana DeBose, who, if you haven't seen West Side Story, she stole every scene, she was in that movie. So she definitely deserved the Oscar there. Also too, she's a first, Afro Latina, and also she's openly gay. So she's part of the LGBTQ plus community. So, congrats to her. Also Jessica Chastain for being Jim and Tammy Faye. Tammy Faye Baker, her performance was spot on. So I can see why she won it. Now, Will Smith, now look, the other stuff aside, I know some folks don't want to do that, but his turn as Richard Williams was really good, so he definitely deserved that. Coda deserved the win for best picture. Questlove, if you haven't watched Summer of Soul yet on Hulu, you guys should check it out. And it's unfortunate that happened after that whole incident. Again, we won't get into that. But if you haven't seen Summer of Soul on Hulu, you guys should check it out. Questlove, produced it. It's basically based on his life, and it talks about the stuff that happened. It's a great doc. So it's not a very long one, so you guys can get the investment on that. So go for it. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna say about the Oscars. I'm just gonna leave it at that. All right.
Yeah, Questlove is also a big fan of Soul Train. You can follow him on Instagram and Twitter, and he tweets some stuff out about that TV show. We had our thoughts about Soul Train, which is 50 years anniversary this year. Of course, Don Cornelius has passed away 10 years ago. We spoke about that. But Questlove in that group, the Roots, the hip hop group, they can play all types of music. I know believe they still doing their thing on Jimmy Fallon's Tonight Show on NBC as their house band. So they really made a mark for themselves over the years. So I'm really proud of him and that group.
Yeah, they were a really great band. I think they lost one of their members too. I think like last year. So rest in peace to him. Also to Ryan Bates just came across the wires in the last 15 minutes. The Bears actually offered him a 4-year deal. Well, now the Bills have matched that. He's a little off of the tackle basis, so the Bills are going to match that offer, and so the Bears missed out on a really solid O lineman. So sorry for all you Bears fans that were hoping to have him on the help protect Justin Fields. That's not happening. Albert Pujols is going back to St. Louis. It's kind of got lost in all the show with all the weirdness that's happened last night, but this came across. He signed a 1-year deal to go back to the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's basically a farewell tour, and now with the DH in the National League, he can play part-time, and he can pad his stats, and he's definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer for sure.
Yeah, so a nice job by him. Also, congrats.
And he won two World Series with them in 2011, I believe, in 06 as well.
Yes, he did. So you can go home again. Apparently, also congrats to the Canadian men's national team in soccer. It's their first time since 1986 they have qualified for the World Cup. Yes, it's been that long, folks. That's crazy. And the U.S., they beat Panama. So as long as they don't lose by 6 against Costa Rica on tomorrow, I think it's tomorrow or Wednesday, that they should be able to get back into the World Cup. Thank God, because I didn't want to hear all those folks talking about the American men not getting to the World Cup again. I did not want to hear those takes. So it's I've heard enough annoying takes for 1 week. So I'm going to do that. Also do some tough news there about the Celtics, since we talked about the Celtics earlier, what they've done. Robert Williams, who was a big part of, the scoring, surge and what Tatum's been doing and such, he's going to be out at least for the rest of the regular season, maybe perhaps the whole season with a torn meniscus. So a big loss there for the Celtics.
Yeah, it's the Celtics trying to battle for top spot in the East, just like everybody else with Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Chicago, and Miami. That's a tough loss, especially at this time of year.
Also, to Scotty Scheffler, for winning the match play, the World the WGC match play championships over in Ohio. And too bad our girl Christine's out there. I know she would appreciate this a little bit more, but
Yeah.
it's he's in his last 5 starts, he's had I think like 3 wins his last 5 starts. So he's only 25. Could he be the favorite to win the Masters? Maybe. That coming up in a few weeks, so he's probably going to be the favorite. He's actually, he has played in that course. He's very close to that course, so pretty cool to see. So Mr. Scheffler, pretty much dominated from the jump for the most part in this tournament. So congrats to him. But that's not an easy thing to win that Dell match play. So just just a remarkable story. Also, too, he came there. He was there as a fan with his girlfriend. Now he wins it with his his girlfriend, now wife. So it all comes full circle for him.
All right, and that's a wrap. Thank you very much for you guys joining us here today on the Monday edition of Second City Sports, live and in living color, or Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You can catch us every Monday, every Friday, right here on Sports Zone Chicago from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, as we give you this great Chicago sports talk and national sports talk as well. And Lakeena, take us home. Where can the people follow you on social media?
You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan_McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly. You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app to catch any of our other 5 live shows. You can go back and catch your favorite episodes of your favorite shows throughout the week. And you can follow our podcast, Second City Sports, by subscribing to War on Anchor. We're available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And you can follow War Media at WAR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube as well. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And one more again, as you young folks will say, catch Second City Sports live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Second City Sports live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
All right, folks. I know it's getting a little cool out there, so try to dress accordingly.
Don't throw away those winter coats just yet. I found out almost the hard way this weekend.
Oh dear, that's not good. And also the gloves either. So wear your smaller gloves. That's probably the best route to go to, especially this time of year. But look, if you're not going to wear a mask, wash your hands. If you're not going to get vaccinated, still, wear your mask. Wash your hands and just be good to each other. For Sid, I'm Lakeena. This is Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you Friday.
Doppels, holla!